What if I told you the world just hit an oil price not seen in 4 years, and the reason why should concern every single person with money in the market right now? That is exactly what we are unpacking today. The Reuters story global oil price hits 4-year high on concern of US-Iran war escalation. We are going to break down exactly what happened here and what the real risks are that every investor should know about. But before that, you are watching Let's Decode the News, where we take the biggest business and finance stories and decode them so anyone can understand. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now. All right, let us get into it. Global oil prices jumped to a 4-year high of more than $122 a barrel on Thursday. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. That number is not just a headline for the business news. That is a pressure point hitting every corner of the global economy. When Brent crude oil crosses that kind of threshold, it is not just gas station prices going up. We are talking shipping costs, food prices, manufacturing costs. Everything tied to energy starts feeling the squeeze. And right now, the world is already dealing with enough economic stress. This is the last thing most people needed. And the reason behind it is even more alarming. On concerns that the US-Iran war could worsen and lead to a protracted Middle East oil supply disruption. Now watch what happens next. This is not a disruption from one small country. We are talking about a region that controls one of the most critical choke points in global energy. When traders start pricing in a prolonged conflict there, they are essentially saying, we have no idea how long this lasts. And that uncertainty alone is incredibly expensive for everyone. But here is what that disruption is actually doing to prices. That could hurt global economic growth. And look at where this goes. That phrase sounds almost mild when you read it quickly. But think about what it actually covers. Slower growth means fewer jobs. It means tighter credit. It means businesses pulling back on investment. Anyone following business daily news or economic times right now knows this is not just an energy story, it is a full economy story. High oil does not just hurt at the pump, it works its way through the entire system like a slow leak. Quietly, steadily, until everyone starts feeling it. Here is the part that changes everything. The price of Brent crude has doubled since the US-Israeli attack on Iran began on February 28th. Now here is where I stopped and reread. Doubled. Not up 10%, not up 20%, doubled. If you were paying around $70 for a barrel a couple of months ago, you are now paying close to $140. That kind of move in that short a time reshapes entire industries almost overnight. Airlines are looking at fuel bills that could destroy their quarterly profits. Transport and manufacturing companies are watching their margins shrink in real time. And it is not just Brent crude telling this story. And this next part is the one that stuck with me. For those who do not think Brent prices have the potential to reach $150 a barrel, you ought to look away now. And look at where this goes. When someone who brokers oil trades for a living says something like that publicly, you pay attention. This is not a permabull on social media. This is an industry professional telling you the math is already pointing somewhere very uncomfortable. $150 Brent crude oil would not just hurt consumers. It would force policy responses from governments, emergency releases from strategic reserves, and potentially tip already slowing economies into something much worse. And this next part is the one that stuck with me. Both benchmarks are on track for their 4th month of gains. Here is what most people are missing. 4 straight months. Not one spike that scared everyone and faded. Not a 2-week panic. 4 consecutive months of gains. And that matters far more than any single day's price move. Anyone tracking finance news closely knows that markets that grind higher like this are sending a very clear message. The people with real money on the line do not believe this ends anytime soon. And the article tells you exactly why. Now here is where it gets really uncomfortable. Reflecting fears that the Iran conflict could choke global oil supplies for months to come. But wait, because it gets worse, not days. Not weeks, months. That is the working assumption baked into prices right now. And if that assumption holds, we are only partway through the economic pain this is going to cause. The downstream effects on inflation, on consumer spending, on corporate margins, most of that has not fully shown up yet. So what does the market think is going to fix this? This next part stopped me cold. Analysts now say destruction in the demand for oil due to the high prices. And this is the part that tells you just how stuck this situation really is. when the best solution analysts can identify is that prices stay so high that people simply stop buying oil. That is not a recovery plan. That is the market giving up on finding a real fix and just waiting for the pain to do the work instead. And the next line makes that even clearer. And look at where this goes. May be the most likely factor to alleviate the current tight supply situation. Here is what most people are missing. Demand destruction is a brutal mechanism. It does not discriminate. Small businesses that depend on fuel get hit. Airlines, transport companies, manufacturing stocks, they are all under pressure right now. Consumers who can barely afford necessities get hit hardest. It is the economic equivalent of treating a fever by making the room so cold the patient stops moving. Technically, it works. But nobody should feel good about calling it a solution. Here is the part that puts everything in perspective. Analysts see about 1.6 million barrels per day of demand lost. Now watch what happens next. 1.6 million barrels a day. That is a real number. That is real economic pain already happening right now as businesses and consumers pull back on energy use. And under normal circumstances, that kind of demand drop would be more than enough to start rebalancing an oversupplied market and bringing prices back down. But look at who is actually being forced out. As consumers and end users simply stop using oil products in some form because of high prices. And then this line hit me. People are not switching away from oil because of green policy or long-term planning. They are being forced out of it by price. That is a very different kind of energy transition. It is messy, it is painful, and it tends to hit the most vulnerable people in the economy first and hardest. And yet even all of that is still not enough. And this is the line that brings it all together. It's clearly not enough to fill the supply gap we are currently facing. And look at where this goes. The natural market correction is already happening. 1.6 million barrels a day of demand has already been destroyed. And it is still not enough. That is the line that should stop every investor cold. Because it means the supply disruption here is so significant that even the market's own built-in healing mechanism cannot close the gap. That is exactly where my take comes in. But real quick, before I give you my take, this video is for educational purposes only, not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. So, here is the honest truth. The thing that concerns me most is not the price number you see on the screen today. It is the lag. Energy prices take time to work through the broader economy. The pain at the pump shows up in grocery store prices in a few weeks. It shows up in corporate earnings a quarter later. It shows up in layoffs and budget cuts after that. We are not close to feeling the full impact of sustained $120 Brent crude oil yet. And that gap between where prices are and where the economic pain has reached is something every investor tracking business news right now should be watching very carefully. The Strait of Hormuz is the real variable in all of this. As long as it stays effectively closed, there is no supply-side fix available. OPEC can vote on output increases. Producers can try to reroute shipments. But the physical reality of that bottleneck is what is driving every finance news headline right now. And from what the analysts in this article are saying, no resolution looks close. For anyone thinking about their portfolio in this environment, the sectors that tend to hold up when oil stays elevated are domestic energy producers, energy infrastructure, and certain commodity-related equities. The sectors that take the most pressure are airlines, transport companies, manufacturing stocks, and anything that depends on people having disposable income left after filling a tank. The bottom line is simple. Sustained high Brent crude oil prices are essentially a tax that nobody voted for, that falls hardest on the people least able to absorb it, and that keeps compounding the longer this situation drags on. Stay informed, watch that straight, and do not let the day-to-day noise distract you from the bigger picture. If this breakdown gave you something to think about, please like this video and subscribe. It genuinely helps more people find the channel. And here is my question for you in the comments. Do you think oil prices are already past their peak, or do you see them pushing toward that $150 level before this is over? Tell me what you think below.